Three, two, one. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Keep Going and Keep Inspiring podcast today. I am Rachel Beth Tamayo, your host for today, and I'm so excited. Happy New Year. This is our second podcast for the year. Actually, oh no, first podcast for 2026. So, welcome to Keep Going and Keep Inspiring channel, a space where we have real conversations about growth, purpose, healing, and courage, and it takes to move forward. When fear tries to hold us back, this is the channel for anyone who's ever felt stuck, unsure, or overwhelmed, but still believe that there is more meant for them. Here we explore mindset, leadership, self discovery, and the inner work required to live and lead with intention. And today's conversation especially powerful because we are talking about rewiring our minds to choose love over fear. Wow, that is so exciting, especially for our young people out there who's currently striving and getting know more about their life and wanted to know more about themselves and our careers, our decisions, and our lives. And I'm truly honored to introduce today's our guest speaker, Clarisa Romero. Clarisa Romero is an international best-selling author, award-winning career success coach, and the CEO and founder of the Career Satisfaction Academy. Clarissa's journey is deeply inspiring. Once plagued by uncertainty and lack of clarity about her own career path, and she transformed her experience into a mission. And today, she helps professional women over 40 get unstuck and discover their true career fit by aligning with how they are naturally designed to work best. And through her proven and trademark process, Clarissa also guides women in uncovering their unique career type so they can gain clarity, move forward with confidence, and build careers that truly reflect their strengths, values, and purpose. Of their impact has earned her prestigious recognitions, including the Odyssey International Productions Entrepreneur of the Year Award. Wow, stunning. We're so excited to hear. And also in the HCC Women of Commerce Inspire Her Leaders of the Year Award. She also proudly served as the face and representative of the Women of Heart Awards, a global women's empowerment organizations honoring women leaders who are making meaningful change around the world. Clarissa is the CEO and founder of the Career Satisfaction Academy, and we're gonna put their website. So if you guys have questions after this, you'll feel free to reach out to them and to their team. And Clarissa, this is one of the best, number one, best-selling author of The Fearless Entrepreneur and EI Emprendedor Interpedo. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. And women, she's not empowering women to align with their next career success move. You'll find her cuddle up watching a movie with her husband and her kitty cat Leo. So that's so cute. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome here on stage Clarissa. Hi, Clarissa. How are you doing today?
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm so excited to be joining you and for this opportunity to just have a chat and kick off the new year.
Wow, you're so amazing. I was reading your bio and I was like, oh my god, this is so powerful, and I'm so happy that you're here. So, yeah, Clarissa, can you share a bit about your personal journey and what inspired you to focus on rewiring your mind with love instead of fear?
Yeah, well, my journey, the path that I'm on and that got me on this mission goes back to 2009. 2009 was a very significant and powerful year of a lot of things that happened to me. In the span of 9 months, I lost my job, I lost my house, I got divorced, and my father passed away from cancer. So all that in 9 months. As you can imagine, most of us, I was in my 30s, and at that time, everything that I thought that was my identity, I lost. So I felt like I had no idea who I was. I felt into a very deep depression. for many years. It took a long time to dig myself out of that one. However, I knew that I needed help. I was quite suicidal in that depression. It was a very dark time. And in my journey to try to get myself back together, and I was doing research, and one day, very synchronistically, one day I heard a question that changed everything forever for me. And what I heard was, do you believe life happens to you, or do you create your life? And Rachel, my goodness, that was the beginning of everything, because it was like one of those moments, like when in a movie the music stops, there's complete silence.
Mhm.
It was the first time I paused to ask myself, what? Ah, life happens. What could that mean? That do I believe that, does life happen, or or do I create my life? And I started researching. Let me investigate, what could that possibly mean? And what I stumbled upon, part of my background is in psychology, so I love how the mind works. And what I stumbled upon was this amazing time, all this research that was available when you looked about how our mind works, how we can reprogram our mind to have a better life. And that led to another discovery, that I thought, and most of us live our lives thinking that we're suffering life. And what I finally realized at that time, and through those understandings and that research, was that I was suffering my thoughts and emotions. I wasn't suffering life. That's what makes life so painful, when we're trapped in our thoughts and emotions, and we're spinning our wheels, just not, thinking very narrow, and not realizing that we have a choice. So that started my journey in reprogramming my mind, in living differently, in choosing to be more intentional in the way that I was showing up in life.
Wow, that is so amazing, Clarissa. I had a goosebump actually when you share about one question in your life, and after that, you have everything. You have answers to everything, and that's so inspiring. And I'm so happy that you're here in my channel. Keep going and keep inspiring a lot of people. We will inspire a lot of people from your story. And with that, I just want to ask you a quick question. So, were there moments when fear tried to hold you back? And how did choosing love change the outcome of that situation?
Is fear. I think fear is something that all of us humans uh suffer from, right? I think it's part of it's part of life, to fear, because it goes back to our ancestors, right? If they didn't have fear, maybe they would not stay alive. So fear is wired in our humanity. My relationship with fear has dramatically changed, and so when I started living a life more intentional, more present, understanding the brain science of that, when we are in fear, we're operating from the limbic center. So we're not going to get very scientific here. It's not a workshop, but we operate from our fear center, which, yeah, it's meant to keep us safe. But when we don't check in how present we are, when we don't check to see how realistic, some fears will keep you safe, but some fears will stop you from growing, from experiencing personal growth and professional success, and professional growth, rather. And so you asked me how has it shown and stopped me. And the time in my life where I really realized, which was coincidental with that time period, because really all those discoveries led me to become an entrepreneur, led me to start a business, led me to opportunities. When I realized how fear was just showing up, I had I had fear of death. I had fear of going back to work. I had all sorts of fears. That's why it took so long for me to get back on my feet, because when my father passed and I went through the divorce, it was so many things. All, sometimes one of those traumas alone will have a spiraling, but it was so many traumas all together that it took a while for me to be able to get into a state of mind where I could start facing those fears. So as I started reprogramming, I realized I was getting opportunities. My colleagues, when I lost my job, the job was with government. I was an appointee for actually two gubernatorial administrations. And so during the time that my dad was really sick, the governor lost the election. That's when I lost my job. I was unemployed, so I lost my house, and I was getting divorced, and I so much ended up in with garbage bags in my mom's living room. So I did not know what my next step would be. And during those years, my colleagues knew how depressed I was, and I would meet with friends that were colleagues, and they were also trying to get back out there because we were all in government, and they moved on, and I was still stuck. And so when I started learning this science and I started reprogramming and I started showing up in life differently and I started coming back out, all my friends were like, "Oh my God, like you're shining, you're glowing. What's going on? Like what are you up to?" And in having those lunches and meeting with them, and I shared what I was learning. And many of them started offering me opportunities, invitations. "Oh, come to my school, like you need to talk to my parents, you need to talk to my teachers." And I was so afraid. I was like, "Oh, well, I'm not an expert. I'm just learning. I'm just exercising and learning this for myself." And that's when in that process of realizing what my thought patterns were, and I recognized how it was getting in the way of my success, how it was getting in the way of my next career chapter, because I was saying no to all these invitations. And so I had to work really hard to say, well, why can't I do that project? I know what I'm talking about. I could help those kids. And so I started saying yes, and I started conquering those fears. So that's how the Fearless Entrepreneur book was written, because a lot of my friends were like, "Well, what exactly, Clarissa? What steps are you taking?" They wanted to hear. Well, so I had to think, well, what steps am I taking? Let
Yeah.
me start documenting how this is unfolding. So yeah, so I would say the biggest realization of how fear was getting in the way was in how much it was hijacking my brain and telling me, "You don't know enough. You're too old for this. What? You're going to start a business? You don't know anything about business." So I had to reprogram all of that by questioning, well, okay, but I can learn, but I can try, but I'm being offered these opportunities. So why not? So once again, I had to question what I was saying to myself and how true it was. And that's when you realize a lot of them are cognitive distortions where, that inner critic, how I say in my book, that inner critic was a real bully. My inner critic was constantly, belittling myself, constantly putting myself down, constantly doubting myself. So yeah, definitely. That was a real lesson of how it can stop us from anything that feels threatening, gets our mind into a state where our mind will be hijacked, and it will stop us from changes that could be good for us. Most likely those changes are good for us, but if we don't bring present moment awareness and ask ourselves, wait, what am I thinking? How realistic is that? Is there any truth to that fear?
Oh my God, that's so amazing. I've been reading this book about neuroplasticity by Jim Rohn, and it was so wonderful. And now meeting you is just like a positive energy that connected us here, right?
Yes,
Because we don't know.
yes,
And now we're here on my channel and your Career Satisfaction Academy to keep going and keep inspiring. That's so amazing. And thank you for sharing your story. I mean, it is so wonderful and it's inspiring. And I can't believe that I'm looking what your most beautiful era, right? Like after this situation that you encountered and you're here sharing your story. It's a success. So, I have this question again. And the next question is, how do you personally cultivate a mindset of love and positivity, especially during challenging or uncertain seasons?
And that goes back to understanding, well, what does it take to be resilient, right? What happened to me back in 2009, when all those circumstances that happened all at once, I did not have the tools to be resilient. And then we have to analyze, well, what does resilience mean, or to be resilient? And it's our capacity to bounce back from adversity. When something really traumatic happens to us, how fast can we get out of that thought that it's the end of the world? How fast can we bounce back? And for me, it took, at that time, I had no tools, I had no awareness. It took a long time. But when we cultivate resilience, we're able to bounce back faster. Things happen, something will knock us off our feet, and we're able to get back on our feet and keep moving. And during the time that I was researching all that amazing brain science of how we can reprogram our thoughts and how to go about it, when my friends and colleagues were asking, well, what are you doing exactly? I created a 4-step brain hack that I ended up getting it trademarked. And those are the steps that I use, and those are the steps that I teach my clients. And hack is an acronym for holding focus, because we need to hold focus. When we understand simple brain science, we understand that there's an attention cycle that all of us go through, and if we don't hack it, then we're on autopilot, we're on victim mentality, we are just victims of life. But when we stop that cycle throughout the day by pausing, taking a deep breath, getting present, asking yourself, how am I showing up? Am I present? Am I on autopilot? Am I reactive, or am I responsive? Am I listening to whoever I'm talking to, or is my mind wandering and listening and thinking about something else? Is my mind in the past, or is it here in the present moment? That's how we start training the mind to be in the present. And when we do that, it's I always like to think of, and I've heard someone say this way back, when it's like when we think of our body, if we don't train it, if you don't build strength, when you go to use those muscles, you don't have them to pick up something heavy. So when we don't do the fitness with our mind, when you need it in the moment of adversity, a crisis, a trauma, well, guess what? That muscle is not there. And we then get very emotional, and we stay stuck for a long time. But if every day we practice, that's how we become resilient. And when trauma happens, something chaotic happens in our lives, we're able to definitely operate from a different part of the mind, where your brain doesn't get hijacked with fear, or with anger, or with any of those emotions that will make us spiral. But rather, of course, emotions are a natural part of life. But when we get stuck in those emotions that are not conducive to our well-being, that's where it's a problem. So resilience is super important, and that requires brain fitness, because there's an attention cycle that all we have to know is that that's a predisposition we all have. And in how fast this society moves, we definitely need to that prime our brain. It requires training, brain fitness. Take the brain to the gym.
That is so right. That is so right. I totally agree. Like, it's kind of like a strategy of self talk,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like, in the morning, you do some meditation and telling yourself that what is past and you're safe now. So, thank you. I mean, that is so wonderful.
And I
It's
wanted to add to that, not to
Mhm.
interrupt you. Every morning I do my brain
Yeah,
fitness.
the
Self-talk is an aspect of that. And then what's the brain fitness? Well, we need to anchor our attention, that attention cycle that I mentioned. That's where the formal aspect of mindfulness, that I like to call the brain fitness, comes in, where we see all the different practices that are out there. Uh Count. That's an anchor. You could hold your attention by counting to see if you lose track of the numbers, or the movement of your chest, of your heart, anything that will anchor the attention. Because what we will find is that our mind will quickly go and forget that on what we were counting or what we were anchoring our attention. And that's when we realize how distracted we are, and that we're not really present most of the time in the day.
The brain fitness is like the muscle fitness, and now for rewiring your brain, it's called the brain fitness. Wow, I
Yeah.
will remember that. Thank you, Namaste.
I love it.
And, for our listener who might be struggling right now, what advice would you give to someone trying to shift from fear based thinking to love based thinking?
Well, it comes back to that question that stopped me and changed my life forever. Until we stop in a day, or one day, and you ask yourself, so how am I showing up in life? How am I showing? There's this image that usually, we if you type in mindfulness in Google, there's this usual image of a guy with a dog, and then the guy's mind, there's like a little bubble, and it's full of stuff. It's just full of all these things that he's thinking about, and the little dog's bubble just has like a little tree and maybe a flower. The dog's very mindful, very present. So we have to, anyone that wants to change their circumstances, change their mindset, it has to start with like asking yourself, how am I showing up in life? Am I usually present, or is my mind just lost? Do I believe life just happens to me, that I'm just the victim of circumstances, or do I believe that I can consciously create my life or co create? That's what happens. We co create when we are in charge and take ownership of how we're feeling, of how we're showing up, of how we are thinking. We have to take ownership of of everything, of all our circumstances. We are not victims. When we start exercising that in our lives, we realize how much power we really have over how we experience life. And bad things happen all the time, things that are rough, like having experiencing the death of a loved one. Of course, that is not easy, but it's the thoughts around it. That's why I was in a deep depression. It was my thoughts around my father's death, and how I was seeing the death, and how I was allowing that to keep me down from even showing up, literally from showing up in life. That's why I ended up developing a phobia of going back to work. I started feeling I can't go back to work. I don't want to be around people. I did not want to go to events. I did not want to interact with. I would not attend anything for a couple of years. No one could reach me. I was just in a cocoon. I did not want to see other humans. I was just in the dark,
Mhm.
literally.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
have to ask yourself, that starts with that. And when we do that, we really realize that there's so much research to show us how powerful we truly are, because the power comes from that presence of, oh my goodness, I am in charge of how I want to think, of how I think about things. I am in charge of how I feel, of am I allowing my emotions to just completely hijack me and how I show up. So it really, the root of it is, ask yourself, how are you showing up in life, and are you showing up as a victim, or as a powerful creator of how you want your life to flow. That's what I
That
would
is so
say.
wonderful. Like, you always have to ask yourself and do not think about you are the victim and your thoughts. Your fear is just a thought. So you have to get up from there and
Yes.
help yourself because nobody will
Absolutely.
help
And you'll
you.
be
Yeah.
surprised. You'll be surprised what you're saying to yourself, because I did not have awareness of the nasty things that I was saying to myself. I When I started paying attention to my repetitive thoughts, because that's
Mm-hmm.
another thing, we start learning that our thoughts just loop. They're like
Yeah,
it's like a record. They're just looping, and you're
spiral,
repeating the
right?
same thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And they may take different shapes, but at the end, it's, oh, I'm so stupid. I'm not smart enough. I'm too old. I might as well just take my life, which is what I was saying to myself,
Mm-hmm.
because life is not worth living. Life is so hard. And so you start recognizing why you're getting sick, which at the time I had all sorts of conditions, not just mental conditions, physical conditions, because that's where I was living. I was triggering that with my thoughts, because one of the things that I learned when I say that there's so much research out there to understand how powerful our thoughts are. They say just the way that we are what we eat, we are what we think.
Wow.
And every time we have a thought, right, it releases chemicals. And so if you're constantly just saying nasty things, you're releasing all these chemicals in your body, all this cortisol and adrenaline, and it's just wreaking havoc on your organs and your body, and we don't realize that we are doing that.
Yeah. So we are actually the driver of our brain. So whatever we think, that's gonna be us. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes, we
I
are.
love that.
Yeah. I remember I saw that. Oh my God, 10 back in
Mm-hmm.
2014. I saw somewhere where it said, you are what you think. And I was like, oh my God, just like, that phrase, you are what you eat. And then as I was learning, I was like, yes, oh my goodness. I am a reflection. Like at the time, I was like, I am what I am, what I'm thinking. That's why I'm sick. That's why I'm depressed. And but then
Yeah.
I said, okay, but I can change this.
Yeah. It is the power of rewiring your brain.
Yes, yes.
So are there any specific practices, rituals, or techniques that helps you rewire your thoughts toward love rather than fear?
Yes. So I was mentioning that four-step brain hack, which I have handouts that help people. Okay, very simple reminders of how do you practice that. That four steps to brain hack. You have to hold focus. And how do you do that? By every day select a spot, having a spot that you go to where you're going to do that brain fitness, where you're going to anchor your attention on your breath, on a noise, like let's say birds singing outside your window, and you just, every time you get distracted from that, the birds singing, you're going to realize it and bring your attention back to the birds singing. For That's just one example. You're going to assess your thoughts, you're going to check in with your emotions, and and the K in the hack. So the H is for holding focus, the A is for assessment of thoughts, the C is for calibration of emotions, and the K has to do with keeping conscious, because there's a whole science behind how fatigue takes place every day for all of us. But we could prolong when we hit a condition that is a real condition called decision fatigue. We used to think that, oh, I just hit decision fatigue, and we just said it loosely, but it's an actual condition that we reach every day, where we have reached the maximum capacity of good decisions that we can make for the day, and we need to be aware of that. So if you don't prime your day, I prime my week, and every day I prime my day, and then every Sunday I prime my week, so that I'm not depleting my mental resources thinking every day, what am I wearing or what am I eating? Little simple decisions, because they will take away
Mm-hmm.
from your capacity to make good decisions. So the four-step brain hack is how do you hack all that? How do you hack your day so you can be present, so you don't hit decision fatigue in the middle of the day, when you could reach that level when you're ready for bed and perfect. Now you're ready to go to sleep.
Wow.
So, as a matter of fact, I was going to say I have a gift for anyone listening to us. A little surprise. So I
Oh,
have my book as an e-copy, that,
mm-hmm.
and in there it talks about all the steps and how to practice the steps, and everyone can download it for free. It's a free ebook version of it. So I will give you the link to that. We could share this with everyone, and it's book dot yourcareersuccessgift.com. And I'll
Okay.
send you that link so that we can incorporate it. And that way, the steps are there. My whole journey is there. And it can serve as inspiration, it can serve as guidance on how to prime, how to take priming means take how to take your brain to the gym, how to prepare your brain and your mind so that it could be resilient, so it could be present, so that we are not victims of circumstances, but the complete opposite, we could be in our power.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Miss Clarissa. That is so helpful, especially nowadays, starting the year. We want us to start the year right, and that would be our guideline to be the best version of ourselves. So, for our listener, we were going to put the link out after this podcast, and please feel free to reach out also to Miss Clarissa's team if you want to learn more about yourself. Thank you. And
Thank
I wish I can extend more time, but this is just gonna be a 30 minutes. So for our last question, I'm so sorry for our listener, but this is our last question for our guest tonight. So, how can our audience apply, or I mean, our listeners apply these principles in their relationships, work, leadership roles, or personal growth journeys?
and
How wiring your brain is easy for them, it's beneficial for them.
the science that we're talking about, being in the present moment is something that impacts our personal relationships and our professional relationships. And so let me give an example. So in our personal relationships, when you're present, you're going to show up differently. Someone says something to you, you're going to be more responsive rather than reactive, because you're just functioning from a different part of the brain when you do these practices. And same thing applies in our professional life. When I remember when I started practicing this, I started asking myself, okay, am I stopping myself from good opportunities? And I was, from opportunities to show up in a bigger way professionally. So it impacts your career in that way. It impacts your communication in the workplace with your colleagues, how present you are. Because once again, are you reactive or are you present? Are you a mindful leader? Which means that you are always in aware of your social emotional dynamics. And and how I love to use this when it comes to in career and professional is when you're present, and you start learning about which are other components that I teach in my career satisfaction academy. But when you start learning about how you're designed by design, by human design, your career type, and how are you here to fulfill your life mission, and the only way to do that is when you have a contemplative practice, when you are doing the bring fitness, because otherwise, how could you possibly align with how you're here to be successful if you are on the autopilot all the time, if you're reactive all the time, if you don't you're always in conflict with colleagues and other people. So that's why these practices impact every facet of our life. It impacts our, if you're a parent, it impacts how you're parenting. There's a whole thing about mindful parenting, which is all about being in awareness, so that as you're interacting with your child, you're more present to their needs, you're more present to their emotions, you're more present to guide them. It's a science that can be applied to every facet of life. I love using it. It's one of my tools that I teach all my clients, because you cannot achieve career success and get in alignment with how you're here to work best without awareness. It starts there. We need awareness for everything. Otherwise, we're on autopilot and nothing smart happens there.
Wow, I love that so much. I think I've learned your book in just 30 minute session, and it helps rewire my brain. And later I'm so excited to do some self-talk. and
Yes.
support, especially those who are currently in struggling right now. Because I myself am a psychology too, and I really, really love studying psychology because it helps me initially.
Yes.
Yeah, with my own benefit as well. So thank you so much, Miss Clarisa. And before we end our outro, would you like to promote and invite people to your Career Satisfaction Academy, or are there any programs or upcoming events that you want to promote?
Well, I like I said, everyone is welcome to grab their free copy of the Fearless Entrepreneur book because it starts with awareness. So that was book.yourcareersuccessgift.com. And also follow me on Facebook by my name, Clarisa Romero. I also have a private Facebook group that I think that you're part of, which is all about career transition, which is how I love to bring the mindfulness and the brain science of mindfulness and my understandings of human design to align with our the way that we are here to work best and align with our life purpose. So anyone that's interested in that, first know that it starts with awareness. And in the career transition group, that's where I share a lot more of how I'm using the science behind mindfulness, the practices of the 4-step brain hack. Sometimes I run, by the way, soon I'll be running a free mindful pause program, which is a seven weeks of practicing the brain fitness. So anyone that wants to stay abreast of that, if you follow my Facebook page, you'll see the announcement for that.
Wow, amazing. We're so excited and we wish to attend one of your workshops soon. So, yeah, thank you so much, Miss Clarisa. And I want to take a moment to extend our warm greetings also to our listeners and also our subscribers for watching us tonight. And Clarisa, of course, your team. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your journey, and it's such a powerful reminder about what's possible when we choose love over fear. And if there's one takeaway I hope you carry with you today, is this: you are not stuck, you are simply being invited to realign. And when you choose to love for yourself, your growth, and your purpose, clarity begins to follow. To everyone listening, thank you for spending time with us. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need encouragement. And please follow Miss Clarice's Career Satisfaction Academy for more learnings with you and for you. And remember, no matter where you are in your journey, keep going and keep inspiring and always choose to love over fear. This is your host again, Rachel Beth Tamayo, and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode. And as we promised, we will bring to you your gifts from our very own guest, Miss Clarisa Romero. And we would like to also tell your story matters, support, share, and speak up because your story can change the world. And thank you also for our sponsors and partners, District Also Safe, Pamana Threads, and Career Satisfaction Academy. We will see you on our next podcast, and we hope to have a wonderful evening. Thank you
Thank
so much, Ms.
you.
Teresa
Thank
Romero.
you.